One of the things that I love about being in an English-speaking country is that it's easy to know when I'm supposed to say good morning. Because if you're in Sweden, we have different times and different ways to say good morning every second hour up until noon, and then it continues like that for the rest of the day. And people get very upset if I say good morning and it's 10 a.m., because then it's really another time in Sweden. But very happy to see you all here. And unfortunately, every single one of you in this room is a target for something or someone. And many of you are probably in higher education, in an industry or a kind of organization that many might think is out of the scope for attacks. But that's not what we're seeing today. And I'm from Sweden. We see this all the time, that we have attacks against our universities and higher education. And we'll talk about that and how you can prevent that and also ensure compliance. And we'll talk about why you're the target, both in terms of traditional cybercrimes like ransomware, DDoS attacks, but more recently, at least in the cyber domain, and especially since we are not looking, theft of intellectual property, cyber espionage, and leaked information. And to counter this and to keep the trust put into you by your students, your faculty, your customers, and your users, we need to work both with security and compliance. But what is the difference, and why do we need both? And do we? And I claim, and we'll see if you agree later on, that no one wants to be compliant. And I'll explain why later. And Brian will also tell you more about how SDSU looks at that. So today, Brian will start to talk about what you and your team have been doing since the last JNUC. And after that, I will continue to talk about the perspectives and the differences between being compliant and being secure, and how Jamf and Microsoft and community solutions can help you become both. And we'll then summarize and hear about the goals for the future for Brian and his team at SDSU, and the learnings and insights and advice that Brian have for all of you here. And we'll talk about the state of the world, or more specifically the cyber world today, and you will learn more about what we see on global and US trends in terms of cyber and compliance. We'll talk about how you can actually become compliant and what that means, because that might mean different things for you in this room and for me and for Brian and even for the organizations that you're representing. And why compliance do matter, even if it's important to balance security versus compliance. But who are we? Who are you, Brian?
Hi, I am Brian Lenz, and I've been at San Diego State University nearly 29 years now. I started off with student support, running a 24/7 computing lab, and then I moved to college IT, supporting faculty, staff, and research. And now, for the last year and a half, I have moved to the business affairs side, and I manage a help desk with 10 people, and then they also said, hey, why don't you run Intune and Jamf? So, that's what I'm doing now.
And give us a little bit of a perspective. How many users' devices do you manage?
Well, the users vary. The devices are probably about 16,000 devices, but a lot of that's unknown with the research because they sneak stuff in, and we're trying to wrangle it all in and get it in Intune and Jamf, so that's the hard part too.
And my name is Simon. I work as the lead architect for a Swedish consultancy firm, and you might wonder why I'm here. It's my fault that Brian is here, but he has said that next year he will push me off the stage and bring in the people that does the actual work.
Maybe.
Maybe. But I've been a speaker at JNUC for a couple of years now. I'm a Microsoft MVP within Microsoft Intune and Azure Virtual Desktop, but I'm here because I know how to properly manage iOS and Mac devices, and that isn't with Intune, but with Jamf.
Yeah, and I guess I would add that it is his fault. So last year was my first time presenting. He came to San Diego to present, and I was at a session, and I go, ooh, next year I should demonstrate how I use what you're talking about. And so we got to do that last year, so it was cool.
Yep. And before Brian will start to talk about what you're actually here for, questions. We might have time for questions at the end of this session, but otherwise both Brian and myself are available to you after the session. We also have a brain date at 3 p.m. today. If it is full, come by anyways. We have more space, and you actually get a specific pin or specialized pin if you stand while on a brain date.
Oh, wow.
So even if the brain date seems full, come by at 3 p.m. if you want to discuss more about what we're talking about and meet some of your peers from higher ed. You will be getting the slides if you want them, and we will have our contact details at the end of this presentation. But now, the star of the show.
You keep saying that. Yeah. So last year was a busy year for us at SDSU. I got excited about a lot of things here at in Nashville last year, and we did a lot of things. So last year I presented on Platform SSO with password, which then I learned we don't want to use password. We want to use secure enclave. So we never really implemented that. But you'll learn more what happened. We also went through a security audit last year, and encryption and patching were not good for us. And so we have a better patching program, which we're still trying to improve, and we have enabled encryption during pre-stage enrollments now. And then we also took the opportunity to, we have many sites, and so we had a lot of sites with the same policies. So we made them all global and cleaned it all up, and they're just applying one instead of everybody creating their own policies across many departments. Other interesting things that I did last year, so we did implement pre-stage with FileVault enrollment. We implemented laps. I made some Microsoft extension attributes, Office attributes to help with patching, and I'll show you those in a little bit. I also created a site extension attribute because it has annoyed me for years that you have sites, but there's no way to export the site, so now I can do that. And then we also use the Jamf Compliance tool for the CIS hardening. So I'm just going to go through some of the things. So not an exciting slide, but laps. So we have laps at pre-stage now. We did not apply, well, we have not gone and applied laps elsewhere, because you can't really, but no local accounts anymore, which we're very excited about, because a lot of departments are all using the same password and the same account when they set up that computer with the shared password. With the CIS hardening, I'll talk about in a little bit, we were able to expire those passwords after a year, so they're basically broken now, and we're much more secure. But the goal is to get rid of local accounts, and it's been working well for us.
So it's an ongoing process to get to this stage where the new devices are rolling in. Yes.
We are also very excited about Jamf Self-Service Plus. I have not been one to roll things out quickly. I upgraded our site pre the normal update for East, which we're in, and deployed this right away. And the users have been happy. We like that they can change their own password now if they wanted to. We also are requiring the login now too, which helps us greatly with pushing out certain policies that are scoped to just specific users. And before, we'd have to tell them, oh, go sign in and then you'll see it. Now we just make everybody sign in, and it's been great. One other thing we started doing with Jamf Service Plus is we stopped installing a lot of software automatically. So Adobe, we learned, only really patches if you use it. And you have to sign in the way the license works. So we're not pushing out Adobe and a lot of things to everybody anymore. We're having everybody go to Jamf Self-Service if they need it, and then they install it. And that's helping us with being compliant on patching.
And how have the users felt about getting the self-service capabilities more than the pushed apps?
At first they're confused, but then after, they go to it now automatically. So we use ServiceNow. So now a lot of times we don't even get tickets saying I want this software. They go look for it and find it, and then don't have to open a ticket. So it's been nice. All right, so the next thing we did is the CIS hardening. And I was using the Jamf Compliance Editor, which was complicated because you had to do it for all the different OS versions. So I was very excited when the Jamf one came out. And like I said, we went through an audit last year, and so this helped with a lot of the audit items. It was really, I have to say, it was really easy to set up. We started testing on a small group, and then we applied it just to IT division, so we did that. We haven't rolled it out 100% yet. We're now testing with faculty because faculty do different things with the research. So far, the only things we've disabled are the enable firewall stealth mode, because we had some software update issues, and then disable AirDrop, because we had complaints that they wanted to be able to AirDrop from their iPhone to their computer. I think we might be doing something with Siri. I think we're going to start getting some complaints about blocking Siri, especially with AI, so we'll see how that goes. Like I said, we tested with a small group. We're now testing with what's called faculty fellows, so they're kind of faculty that are more IT-oriented, and we're getting feedback from them. Our goal is to hopefully apply this to every Mac starting in January at the end of the semester or between semesters, so that's our goal.
And on this, I actually got word from my colleagues back home that there are now more templates available within the compliance solution since like this week.
Oh, really? Just besides the...
Yeah, besides the CIS ones. We have NIST and other things that are available now.
And just, if there's any PC people in the room, I also had to do this for Intune. Not fun. This was much easier. This was just, it was really easy to do, where we had to create, it was a lot more work on the Intune side, so I love Jamf.
And you mentioned something. Why were you required to do the CIS compliance? I saw something in the notes about a California regulation that required...
Well, yeah, so we went through a security audit, and it just helps us check all the boxes of requirements that the Cal State University system requires. So it's the easiest way to check the boxes. So other accomplishments, I created the 2 extension attributes so we could see what versions of Office people have installed, because we have people with 365, we have people with the volume license, and then we still had people on really old versions of 16 and 19, which we're still trying to clean up this week before they expire on the 15th, I think. And so anyway, this has been very helpful.
And I think you,
Oh yeah, I
went
here. Slides, yeah. And so yeah, I also have that one to show the non-compliant ones, and that I have to update. Obviously that's old. I think we're on 101 or 102 now. I don't know where we're on, but I have to update the script when those new ones come out to get the...
And do you use that within your compliance status? Because you have integrated Intune with Jamf, right?
Well, we have, so I've made smart groups, right, to track. So this is how we're being, I mean, I can track to see what's not compliant, so yeah. What's this? So, sorry. So anyway, I have those, and then the site one is the one I was excited about because we have 20, 25 sites, and so now when I export, before I had to go do some Excel magic to extract and find where they belonged, but now it's nice, and with the help of Google, ChatGPT, and some vibe coding, I was able to get that to work, so it's pretty cool. And I guess I talked too much and didn't advance the slides, huh? Sorry.
I spent a lot of time doing
I know you did all those extra graphics, and I forgot about it. I'm sorry. All right. So now what's new? So secure Enclave with Platform SSO, and we're going to go zero touch. That's my goal. And we're going to use Setup Manager and Baseline for that zero touch. And then I'm also excited, I just added this, the API and blueprints from the keynote. I think I'm going to want to tackle some of that stuff this year, or at least see how far we can get. So, this is the new Tahoe pre-stage enrollment screen. So that's the first screen. And with this, we've had a lot of help from Apple. So I want to give Apple credit helping us work through these pre-stage and with Baseline and Setup Manager. And I also want to give a shout out who he's not able to attend, Chris Potente, who is my main Jamf admin. And hopefully next year, him and I will be here presenting maybe how we implemented the zero touch with Secure Enclave without Simon, maybe. We'll see. All right, next screen. So this is just the enrollment customization configuration. We log in with our SDSU ID. And then now the users will see these two screens here, and we're having them put their email in, the asset tag, and computer name. And the computer name is the important part, so we can get it to the site. And we have added these things here, so when people click on that box, we try to help them as much as possible. We are going to experiment with a little different thing on the computer name, and I'll show that towards the end of my slides here. So this is what we're about to test right now, or we've been testing, but we're gonna actually start testing with users and start getting feedback. So we're excited, mainly because now people can see what is installing, right? So they just don't, things aren't just happening in the background, they can see, and we're only installing Chrome initially, just to keep it simple. And then next, they're asked to create their account. Right now, we are not syncing. We're not using Jamf Connect. Well, we are, but we're not using it for this, so we're not going to sync the password. You can see I only have 6 characters up there for testing, but we are going to apply the CIS Level 1 with the 10 character. So they'll be required to do 10, and also it will expire after 1 year because of the CIS. So I'm worried because their password won't match their SDSU ID. So we might get calls, and we're not going to be able to, we'll have to use the lapse admin password to reset it, but we're going to see how it goes. But they will still be forced to change it every year, which is in our compliance. So next, this is baseline. So once they sign in after that account, they get these screens here, so you can see the Microsoft registration installs, and then Edge and Word. Office is slow, depending on where the user's doing this, right? So if they're on campus, it goes fast. On their home Wi-Fi, it's a little slow. So we're still trying to decide what to install, and this might change. You know, people are using Office less and less these days, but when they want it, they want it. They don't want to have to go to Jamf self-service and install it, because we are Google, so they do like using Google Docs. And this is the rest of the apps. We are toying with moving Zoom quicker, or up with Chrome, because I guess what I should say is those 2 that we do install right away, on this screen, the users, while this screen's on the computer, the users can use the computer, right? So they can use Chrome, they can check their email, they could join a Zoom. So we might install Zoom sooner just so they can do that. But if they take too long, the computer's going to restart. Right now we have it at 2 minutes for testing. We're thinking of maybe making it 5 or even 10, and then there is that restart button now, so if they want to go quicker, they can do it. So, you know, this is all experimental right now, but we're excited about it. So, and then after they restart, the FileVault, they'll log in, and the FileVault screen will come up, and they can enable it, and then they'll go to the desktop, and I haven't quite figured out how long this takes to pop up in the right-hand corner. We're still trying to figure out what triggers it. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it goes quickly, but it will pop up in the right-hand corner. They click register, and the process is much more simpler in the past. They click the continue, and this is all on Tahoe. And then the directions come up what to do. The user does it, and you're done, and you have single sign-on working. So it's pretty cool. Now, I'm going to show you, using Swift Dialog, this is the new way we're theoretically going to test, trying to get them to help name the computer. So they'll pick their organization, and right now we only have it configured for the IT division, or Information Technology division, because this is all in a script, and you'd have to have all the sub-departments, but if you would pick IDT, and then all those sub-departments would come up, and then I picked the help desk, and when you're done, it says thank you, this is your computer name, and the computer's named. So we're experimenting, we're going to experiment trying that instead of them typing it in, because we don't think they're going to be able to figure it out. And so, yeah, I think that's it.
You have been busy.
What?
You have been busy.
Yes.
And I think it's when we prepared this session, like the difference between Brian a year ago and Brian now is that you have tons of things to share. And I think it's amazing to hear your journey from last year and how much inspiration you have taken from JNUC. And we'll talk more about why you're here representing SDSU later on and what value you find and the university find of you being here. But Brian has talked about both things that comes into the security bucket and the compliance bucket. Some things are intertwined, of course, but I do think that all of us in here are struggling with the compliance requirements that are put on us by different kinds of organizations in our country or in our part of the world. And that's why I'm saying that very few people want to be compliant. We want to be secure, but therefore other reasons are like we need to work on the compliance side. But security actually will help us out, and compliance will only be a way to build trust. So, and I think that's important in today's world, that we need to be able to trust the organizations and see that you're actually doing a great job with security so that you can report on what it gives you. And to ensure that what you do within security also gives you the value that you're expecting. So it's a balance between how much do we want to be compliant, because sometimes, like you said with the password expiration in 1 year, I find that to be quite interesting, because there are other organizations, and I would say from the cybersecurity point of view that I would recommend my customers to never expire passwords.
Oh, we hope, I'm trying, but there's policies. It takes a long time, the bureaucracy.
Yeah, exactly. You have policies that requires you to be compliant, but it might not be the best from a security point of view. So when I talk about security versus compliance, think of it as a driver's license, where security is all the time you spend learning how to operate the vehicle, and the built-in security features of the car is security, and that will help you in the event of an accident. But compliance is really the driver's license that shows others that you are to be trusted in traffic. We can argue about that, but that's how it looks. So that you can know that this person who is driving the car have gone through certain tests and are capable of operating the vehicle. But a driver's license won't help you in the event of an accident. And I've seen extremes in both directions here, where organizations are pushing security but can't report on it and therefore are seen as non-compliant. And that creates all kinds of challenges when auditors come by, or when you have a cybersecurity incident, if you can't prove that you actually have worked on these things. So we need to balance the security and the compliance part to be really successful as an organization. And some of you might disagree, and that's something I'm more than happy to discuss later on. But to me, when we talk about compliance, we need to understand what we want to be compliant against. We talk about conditional access and the compliance policies within Jamf, but that's the compliance sets you set up. We have the Jamf Compliance Set tool that Brian just showed. That's how CIS wants you to be compliant. You have all sorts of different regulations that requires you to be compliant, so you need to first decide what's important or required for you, and also why it's important for you to be compliant. That will also help you to convince your fellow IT staff or your users why you're doing this. We need to understand who is responsible for this, because in many instances, you in IT are responsible for setting these configurations, but you are not necessarily the ones that are responsible to report on it or follow this up. That's also a thing I think we need to talk more about within organizations, the responsibility of a CISO versus a CIO and a chief security officer, and what one of these people should be doing or not. And how do you become compliant? In some frameworks, it's enough to have a process. You don't really need to follow that up with any kind of security. Just know what to do if something breaks. So it's up to you to decide how far do you want to go in your compliance journey versus what you want to do in terms of security. And when we talk about security, it's important to understand what threats are you under. And I think what I started off with in saying that higher ed is now a prime target, especially for nation-state attackers that wants to get the intellectual property and get access to all of the great things that you are doing research on, and also looking into who are studying or working at your universities. So we need to be aware of what threats are targeting our organization, and that's something that I hope that you are doing today. If you're not doing a threat analysis, please do that. Then work on how to implement these security measures. And this is where I had a session yesterday about, are we using Jamf fully, or are we using Microsoft, or are we using something else to enforce the security configurations we need? Some of that might play into the compliance part, and some might be outside the compliance part, but still important. Like you said about Siri. Is that something you need to do from a compliance point of view or a security point of view? Because no one will really tell you that you should disable Siri specifically. But you might have other compliance sets that requires you to disable assistants like Siri, but that's something you need to figure out as well. And then look into the risk, because there are definitely parts of your organizations that are more targeted by these attackers than others. And some that have a higher value, and some of your research departments that might fall into another kind of compliance steps than the rest of your organization. So I encourage you to think about all of these things when you're implementing both security measures and compliance measures, and see how they interact and what's most important to you. And what I'm seeing from Jamf is that they are doing a great job in helping out with that. Like I said, I work with Intune most of my time, and to get the CIS policies in Intune is just a pain. And this is my personal opinion, but it's kind of obvious to me why it's so much more challenging with Intune. Because if you want to be able to implement your CIS policies from a product, the organization that provides that product, in this case Microsoft or Jamf, need to license the CIS policies. And with Jamf, that's an obvious thing that they can bake into your license, because most of Jamf's users wants it. But if Microsoft were to do that with Intune, they would have to enforce that into every single seat of licenses they have, and that will become extremely expensive for them. And that's why we're seeing the partner ecosystem from Microsoft doing that for them, where you're more aware of what you're paying for. But do use the tools you have available. I think what Jamf is providing is fantastic, and I hope that we can see the same thing on the Windows side at some point. But I think you also have done a great job in doing that. In just a year, you have come very, very far. I'm working with my home municipality now in a huge project where we're moving from, in that case, Workspace ONE to Intune. We'll probably move to Jamf later on for the Apple side. And just to go through the initial testing and see what works for the users and not with CIS is a pain. So I salute you for being fast in doing that. But I also think that Jamf enabled you to do
Jamf made it easier.
Yes. But Brian had already said that next year you and Chris will be here and talk about what you have done from now on until next year, when we might see each other in Kansas City. But why are you really here? Because I'm here because I enjoy being here. I'm a consultant, so I of course hope that I get some kind of recognition for what I do. But why are SDSU here and you here?
I like to be here and be inspired. So I go to the sessions that I see and go, oh, that'd be cool. I want to do that. Or we should be doing that. Why are we not doing that? And then all the, it gives me ideas. It's great to talk to people. At the booths or just at lunch, and you sit down and you start talking with the higher education people, and we swap stories, war stories, so to speak, and give each other ideas, and and meeting people like Simon. It's great to be here. Yeah.
And also, from what we have talked about, your managers are also encouraging you to be here. It's a way to put SDSU on the map. And I just also hope that that inspires others in this room and during the conference to share their stories. Because I've been a speaker at these kinds of events for many, many years, and people are always like, I couldn't be on that stage, I have nothing to tell. But you all have a fantastic story to tell, because you need to inspire each other. So I'm very happy to have Brian here. So what have you learned since last year?
Well, the first thing was that I should be using secure Enclave instead of password. So I learned that before we left JNEC last year. And then I've been really happy. Like I said before, I usually don't do things quickly with implementations, but I swear we had the Jamf Service Plus the first day, whatever version that was, came out. We had it set up and we were doing it with the required sign-on, and then the compliance I was very happy to test right away too. Now the compliance at first was a slightly bumpy road. It's a better version now. They've made enhancements to it with what you could click on and see who was compliant and not compliant. So, but yeah.
And on that note, I had several questions yesterday about the compliance features and also the blueprints, where you're required to turn on single sign-on for Jamf. And I had questions yesterday. Does that impact the users at all?
Yeah, so I don't. So that's one of the things I did right away too. So that was like we did that the first day that was available too. And I think that was probably the most important thing, is that it allowed me to do all those other things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But that's just an administrative.
Yeah, it's mostly, yeah. The users are not impacted. It's just the admins, I guess, the Jamf admins.
Yeah. And you have been working hard since last year to do it. Has it all the time spent been worth it?
Oh, most definitely. You know, I basically we have a team of 2.5 people, me being the half, since I have my other job doing the help desk. So I have my Intune person, Saul, and then my Jamf person, Chris. But we are also cross-training, so we can all support each other. And I just wish we had more people, but I think we have done a lot supporting Intune and Jamf in the last year. So. Yeah.
And I think, like, based on the amount of devices you are supporting, I think a team of 2.5 is an amazing.
Yeah, no, I keep saying we need more people.
Stop being efficient.
Yeah, I know, yeah, so yeah, that's my problem. Yeah, so we have about 10,000 Intune devices, and I think it's about 6,000 Jamf being iPads, and I guess I should also, I'll be honest, you know, we have devoted a lot of time to the computers, and we still need to devote more time to iPads and iPhones. So we're going to be focusing on that next year too, because that's kind of been the ugly stepchild, so to speak. We've been more concentrating on the computers, and we've kind of neglected the iPads.
Yep. And we all know that there are always things we would like within the products. So based on what you have done over the last year, what are you still lacking that would make your and your team's job easier from Jamf or other tools that you're using?
Products I think we're okay. It's like I said before, I really just need more people to manage those devices. And when I walk through all the booths out there, I would love to have a lot of those products that would make my life easier. Realistically, that's not going to happen. But I think, I think Jamf has done a really good job of. I'm excited for the blueprints coming, and we're not really using them at all. So when we get back, the first thing I'm going to do is software updates with blueprints, and then I'm excited for the API stuff coming too. So it'll be interesting to play with that stuff over the next year and come back to Kansas City and see what I've done.
Yeah, and I did see your notes or your Slack channel during the keynote that you were actually instructing Chris and Saul to look into blueprints straight away once it was announced during the keynote. So you're already starting that journey too. And if you come back next year, which I hope you do, even if I might not be here by then, what do you hope to be able to share next year?
Yeah, so I hope that we successfully deployed Zero Touch. And so that's what I hope to, I think that's what if I'm going to do a session next year, I would bring Chris and we would talk about the journey to get to Zero Touch and hopefully the success of Zero Touch. So I think that would be, that's going to be my main goal. I have to say that I was against Zero Touch because I think one of my bosses said they wanted to have it happen, and I'm like, no. I always thought of it as we're pushing it off on the user, right? So the user has to sit there and install the software, and they're just going to open a ServiceNow ticket because it's taken too long, or they're going to open up Word while Word's installing and it's going to cause a problem. But as we worked with Apple and Chris, all my concerns were kind of addressed. And so now when I sit down and do it, I think it's a real seamless experience for the user, because we can just quickly hand them that device, they go through, they do everything, and then it's working. Yes, it might take them 15, half hour, depending on how much software they install, but I think it's a good experience. So we'll see. Well, I might get a lot of feedback from users, and there's going to be people that maybe some VPs that we're just going to have to do it for them, but we'll see. Yeah. So, but I'm excited.
But you have collaborated quite a lot with Apple and Jamf in this journey as well. So you have really been leveraging your contacts at both of these organizations. Is that something you would encourage the rest of the people in this room to do?
Yes. I mean, we're lucky because, Apple's it's free, so because we're education. So and they, being San Diego State University, they want to take what we've done and then get money out of other universities too. So no, it's been great. Jacob Dakanga, I can't probably say his last name wrong, he was referred to as the PSO whisperer in a session I was in yesterday. He has been tremendous, and we're going to meet with him in a couple weeks again to show him the progress we're making, and it's been great.
Yeah, awesome. So what do you want the people in this room to take away from these 40 minutes that we have spent with them?
Find the time and test things, it's worth it, right? And so test, make the time, and don't be afraid to try new things. There's a lot of people at my work that, we've been doing it this way for 10 years, they don't want to change. But all these things, yes, it might take me time to build all those things, but in the long run, it's saving people time in the long run. So test, and play.
Yeah.
It's fun.
And do remember that compliance is not equal security. You need to have both, and sometimes compliance can help your security struggles, and sometimes security helps your compliance journey. But don't assume just because you are compliant with a certain framework that your organization is actually secure, because it might be other things around that or specific configuration that the frameworks do not show you how to do that you still require to become compliant or be secure for real. And I think it's important to think about the trust, because that's something that we are seeing in Sweden for sure, and I'm certain it's the same here, that we need to build trust for our organizations to be successful long term. When we see organizations being hit by cyber attacks, or we see lack of compliance or security within organizations, why should I trust my kids to go to that college or university? Why should I trust them to do my research? So I think that trust piece is something that's really important, and that should be the driver for all of you in your compliance and security work. Because the world is kind of dark, and I'm more than happy to talk more about what we're seeing and go up and talk to the Jamf threat labs on what they're seeing, because we are facing more and more advanced attackers, and they are after you and your information, and they are targeting you with more and more advanced attacks. Something we are seeing a lot in Sweden nowadays. We just had a huge breach where like a quarter of the Swedish population's health data were breached in an incident. And what we're seeing is that attackers are often doing multiple different attacks at the same time. So if you're facing a huge DDoS attack, that might actually just be a cover-up for a data exfiltration that's happening at the same time. So ensure to have a complete visibility into your cybersecurity estate, and don't focus too much if you're seeing an obvious attack, because other things might be going on. It's important to become compliant with the frameworks and the regulations that you must adhere to, but do think an extra time on whose responsibility is it really to ensure that you fulfill those tasks and share the responsibility within your organizations. And compliance does matter, again, for the trust part. If we can't trust the organizations that we trust with our research, with our children, with our money, where should we go then? And that's something that we're seeing a lot of threat actors, especially the nation state backed, trying to achieve. A lot of the attacks that we see against public sector in Sweden is only there to remove the trust from their capability of being secure, and I'm sure the same things happens in the US. And in a world where many feel that they can't trust anyone, and where criminals and nation-state attackers attack high-value yet vulnerable targets, like yourselves, compliance, ISO standards, and requirements can feel incredibly complicated and slow-moving to ensure that you actually are able to face these attacks and ensure that you remain secure. But do trust the work that you all are doing, because if you see compliance as an enabler for security, that will help you immensely in your security journey. But do remember that security and compliance is a team sport. And just as these SDSU teams are successful and stronger together.
Go Aztecs.
I've heard that can be kind of complicated to talk about now, but we'll see. Go Aztecs, I guess. But this IT team is as strong and as successful and as much of a team player as any of the other ones. And you, just as SDSU, are able to reach new heights and elevate, I added that yesterday, I'm on team, security and compliance. But do remember that all the trust you build by being compliant and showing that you what you have reported can easily be lost if you don't balance that with actual security. But in a world where we need to collaborate more and where we need to ensure that research and education and science can be trusted, compliance and security is more important than ever. And that is why Brian and his team and myself and all of you have a responsibility to make our organizations even more trustworthy using technology. Thank you so much for being here. We still have like 5 minutes for questions. If you want to reach out to either of us afterwards, you have our contact details here. We also have the brain date at 3 p.m. And you can always catch us in the hallways. But we have a few minutes for questions if you have any. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. We have a question over here.
No, I'm gonna get my water.
You're getting your water.
I'm getting my water.
Great, we have a question up front.
Thank you. Once you implemented LAPS and got rid of all the local accounts, our university is heavily decentralized, so I have a lot of IT departments, a lot of different local accounts. And when we turn on LAPS, they're going to be pissed at us because they have to type in a much bigger...
Oh, it's not fun, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
So what was your user experience like after turning on LAPS, switching from local administrator accounts to LAPS?
We're trying to do it more where to make it so you don't have to enter that password, because we're going to install it with self-service or do things. So we're trying to make it so you do not need to enter that admin password to do anything. Now, we also did the make me admin, so we'll push that out, and then we can just elevate right there for the make me admin policy through Jamf self-service. So we do that too. But the main goal is just we're trying to make it so you don't need it. But yes, it's not, and at first, some of those, is it a 0? Is it an O? They should not have an O or a 0 in there, but yes. Anyone else?
Okay. Oh, one more question, yeah?
It's about inventory. On the front end, you have the inventory where the users put in their information. How often do they type the asset tag wrong? And then second question is, what if a user belongs to multiple departments? They can't just choose one.
Yeah, so great questions. We don't know yet. It's going to happen, so we're going to learn that. And the multiple department is going to be tricky too. We don't have a lot of that use case. So yes, yeah, we don't know yet. Next year, I'll answer those questions, or hopefully I'll tell you in the presentation, so yes.
Question over there.
So why are you having the user put in all of that information instead of using inventory preload? Just out of curiosity.
Why are they inputting it?
Yeah, instead of using inventory preload and basically pre-staging all of that?
Because we don't have a good system. So, and we don't want to do all of that. It's tricky. It's hard to explain. That's the easiest way. The way the bureaucracy works on campus, like where the stuff's delivered and how it gets entered in a campus database we have, it's all tricky, and we want to get to the user quickly, so we don't have time to do all that, so that's why we're doing that.
That's understandable.
It's basically time, I think, is the answer to that question.
Yeah, we made a slow transition over to basically using Snipe It to load all the information into inventory preload, but we've been there for sure.
And then what we've been doing is using MUT later to go and reconcile all that. So we'll go look at match the social security number, the serial number to the asset tag in our what's called IASSIS systems, and then we can correct all those. So that's what we've been doing periodically too. So
you have an inventory where you're matching the asset tag with the serial number.
Yeah, and we can correct them. So if they enter it wrong, we can fix that problem. So thank you then.
Any more questions? Great. Thank you for being here. We will be hanging out here as long as you need us to. Come by our brain date at 3 p.m. and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.